Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. The close range meta since the launch of season 3 has been pretty competitive, but also pretty obvious at the same time, and there hasn't been much change since. However, with the update that we got yesterday, we ended up seeing a brand new aftermarket part drop, something that we see pretty much every single week. This time though, it was an aftermarket part for the BP50 called the Jack Revenger, and it turns it into an SMG AR sort of hybrid build. And this SMG BP50 build actually has some pretty surprising stats when it comes to competing in the close range meta. So I've been testing some builds, been messing around with some things. It's kind of awkward how limited it is once you put on the conversion kit and what it takes away from attachments, but we got our full stats now. As always, huge shout out to Tony for putting in the work, getting us this information so quickly so we can easily compare things and really find out what is the most optimal. But we got a lot of the close range meta dominators, if you will, over the past couple of weeks. The Striker 9, the Wasp 9, the Swarm is up there, of course, Ram 9, HRM 9, and of course the BP50. And on said BP50, I've gone ahead, I've applied the Jack Revenger kit. When we go through and we look at 300 health and combination shot TTK for the most accurate stats here, we honestly get a pretty interesting graph here. So our yellow line is going to be our main focus here because this is our BP50 with that SMG kit on it. And right away, what stands out? Well, this thing just so happens to be right up there through its first damage range, which is about 12 meters. Now you can adjust this with certain attachments like high grain or something, extend it out a little bit more. But yes, we actually right now have something that is going, you know, pound for pound with the HRM 9, which has not really been done since the start of the season when we saw nerfs to things like the AMR 9 or the Ram 9, for instance. It's kind of just been HRM, HRM, HRM constantly. That was the obvious go-to close range slash best SMG in the game. Well, this BP50 changes things. However, there's an asterisk here. Yes, that first damage range, that TTK goes crazy. It's very apparent though that beyond that first damage range, this thing is really not all that good. It drops off super harshly after that 12-meter range and ends up having the worst TTK out of this selection, and then over range slowly catches up with the other ones. But this is really exclusively a close range meta weapon here. But there are some things that really play into that quite nicely. While you are extremely limited in your range, and like clearly the HRM would take over a lot in the mid-range, the Wasp 9 would take over a lot in the mid-range, same deal with the Striker 9, we can also look at some of the base stats across the board with these weapons and really see where this BP50 is going to shine a lot as well when it comes to mobility, because this thing is crazy fast. So general strafe speed right up there with the other SMGs. Keep in mind, this is all the base stats. If you add on certain attachments, it'll change these values accordingly, obviously. But base stats right up there with the strafe speed. Its ADS time is actually the second best, only just behind the Swarm. So that's really impressive. The fact that this has a faster ADS time than a lot of the more aggressive subs in the game. Its velo is great, but it's not super relevant with where we're going to be using it to begin with. So not really a huge deal there. Its crouch movement speed, for whatever reason, is crazy good. You're probably not crouching all that much, but it's solid, I guess. Fire rate's pretty basic there. We go down to the hip fire. It's going to be a little bit different than the subs because it is still a rifle turned into an SMG, so it'll be a little bit more awkward there, but not awful end of the world. You can still transition nicely. Its general movement speed, actually the fastest here. Its reload time, one of its main drawbacks. Again, super fast TTK, great mobility as we're going through. Its reload is noticeably slower than everything else. That is another thing that's sort of balancing it out. But back to mobility, its general sprint speed, absolutely the best out of all these. Its sprint to fire speed is right up there with some others. It's technically the second slowest here, but you can speed that up obviously, and it's not drastically bad in any way, shape, or form. Swap speed's going to be a tad bit slower, but if you have it out, it'll be fine. And then its tac sprint speed, also the best out of all these options too. So this thing's got an incredible close range TTK, then also has phenomenal movement as well. So we do have a new contender here in the close range meta, something that arguably is better than the HRM 9, just in very specific ways. So let's go through, let's break down a loadout for this thing so you guys can try it out and hopefully fry with it. As we dive into the loadout here, quick reminder, if you're new to the channel, every single day I got you covered with news, updates, patch notes, and meta breakdowns like this. So if you want to guarantee you are always up to date, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. And if you enjoy the video or if you just find it helpful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. It's always really appreciated. So when you've got your base BP50 here, obviously you're going to go down in the first step of this class setup is going to be this Revenger kit, which, as we see, adjusts the damage, adjusts the range, but gives it crazy mobility and ups that fire rate some. Now, right away, massive thing with this conversion kit, we go from having a ton of attachment options on a standard BP50 to no longer having any barrel choices. No underbarrel choices, no magazine choices, no comb choices, and no stock choices. So you are very limited in what you can run on this thing, which is somewhat of a downside for sure. Now, right away, you'll notice that we do have a 60 round extended mag, so that's going to be fine for what it is. Initially, I'm going for a muzzle here, and you got a lot of different options. If you want to stay off the radar, something like Spirit Fire, Shadow Strike, or even something like the Sonic Suppressor could be pretty good here. Personally, I prefer using a compensator, either the Cassis Brake just for straight up horizontal control, or the ZEM 35 compensator for a little bit of horizontal, a little bit of vertical. You can test between these two and see which one works the best for you. Personally, I lean more towards the ZEM 35 compensator. You also can't run a barrel, like I said, so we're going to switch to a laser next, and you got, again, a couple of options here. Kimura is going to be really solid for increasing that ADS speed and that sprint to fire and getting that even faster. That's always a really good choice. You also have things like the Verdant Hook that help out the sprint to fire, a little bit of hip fire as well. Personally, my go-to is usually the Kimura, though. We also are going to be running some ammo here, and as we talked about on that graph, being able to extend that range a little bit some is pretty clutch. So I do end up going for high grain rounds, gives us that fast TTK, that best TTK range out to 14 meters instead of about 12. So a couple of extra meters in there that could honestly be the difference in between you winning a gunfight and you losing a gunfight, obviously. And then we've got 4 out of 5. Really, this comes down to either needing an optic, and that's more your preference. Do you like these iron sights? Do you not? Versus a rear grip. Personally, I don't love any of these rear grips. You could up the sprint to fire a little bit more if you're okay with hurting the control. That's kind of a, do you value movement more than control or not? But that would be an option here. I think the Trust 4 grip tape would also be viable. It's going to hurt your idle sway a little bit, but it gives you better control. So if you're a fan of an iron sight based build, I'd recommend something like this personally. Like I said, you're extremely limited attachments, so it's relatively straightforward. And with this, if we go through, and you can see it's pretty easy to stay on target. Like, it's pretty low recoil. Obviously, you're not going to be fighting at super long ranges because there's no damage there, but in that first damage range, this thing is really easy to use. And as you can see, I mean, it fries. The strafe speed is good, the general movement is good on here. Really solid across the board. Now, again, if you wanted to use an optic, you could drop that rear grip tape, throw on something like a Nidar, a Glassless, a Slate, whatever you're the most comfortable with, and it's still gonna be really good. It's just gonna have technically slightly less control, but hey, maybe you're more accurate using an optic, and that's definitely the way to go in that case. But overall, this thing is a nice little addition to the close range meta for sure. Obviously, with season 3 Reloaded coming up here, we're gonna see some adjustments, probably an HRM nerf if I had to guess, maybe some buffs to some other guns to balance things out even more. So we could see this evolve a lot in the next week or so, but for now, there is a new contender here for sure, depending on how exactly you play. If you're consistently in, 12 to 14 meters, this is definitely arguably that #1 choice now in terms of just pure TTK and damage output. But that being said, that is going to wrap things up for this one. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, drop a like on it, and if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.